Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. What are the odds that XRP is going to hit a new all-time high either by the end of this year or at least by the end of this cycle? And I know some think that we're already going into a bear market, but if Raoul Paul's right, then the market's going to rebound at some point in 2026, and you're going to see an alt season, whether it's mid-2026 or a little bit later. Is it going to happen this cycle? Well, I'm going to share with you what betting markets have to say about XRP specifically hitting a new all-time high by the end of this year. And spoiler alert, people are not optimistic. And you know what? I actually think that's totally fair, even though I'm Mr. XRP bull. XRP is my favorite cryptocurrency. I'm biased. It's my largest individual holding. I don't blame people for that, but I also don't think the fact that betting markets are, they have such low expectations for XRP right now, I don't even think that that's necessarily a bad thing, and I will articulate why. But I got that and all sorts of updates from chart analysts, including lots of XRP-specific stuff. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, as I record this video, it is 6:35 p.m. Central Time, Sunday, December 7th, 2025, wrapping up the year just about. We got XRP at $2.04, Bitcoin at $90,452. So it's another day of sideways price action, though there has been some volatility. Here's the 24-hour XRP chart. You can see it at the 24-hour low of $2, 24-hour high this afternoon of $2.11. So it's quite the little mountain there on the chart. Here's Bitcoin 24-hour, same story. Low of 87,973, 24-hour high of 91,763. This is the same damn chart. It's just the market moving in tandem. That's all that's happening there. So what are people blaming this on, though? Here's the headline from Cointelegraph. Bitcoin price dips below $88,000 as analysis blames FOMC nerves. Okay. Look, leading up to FOMC days, which is where we're going to ultimately get news of whether or not there's going to be a reduction in the federal funds rate. There can be volatility leading up to that. This seems to be one of those things where price moved and then we just slap a narrative on it. That's what it looks like to me, because I just got to tell you, almost no one is expecting that rates are going to stay neutral. Like almost nobody. In fact, here you can look at the betting odds on Polymarket. And by the way, I'm not endorsing Polymarket, just to be clear. I've never used it myself. I'm just pulling it up because they have data on the screen here. But they're noting here that 93% right here on Polymarket are expecting there to be a 25 basis points decrease in the federal funds rate in December. That's just coming up. That's just several days from now. So it's a 0.25% cut. That is what they're expecting. Now, the market will view that as very good. So if the market's freaking out because of this beforehand, I'm not quite sure how that makes logical sense. I'm not sure. I don't buy that narrative because almost nobody expects that there's going to be no change. 7% of people expect there to be no change. So just saying here, folks. Then there's this, though. Crypto market sets odds of XRP hitting a record high by December 31st, 2025. And here we have more Polymarket data. So what are the odds? XRP all-time high by December 31st? 3% chance. Okay, so you might look at that and be like, oh my God, there's something wrong with XRP. Why aren't people more optimistic? And to that I say, shut up, little bitch ass, because it does not make sense to be fearful just because people aren't expecting that in that short of a time frame. And yes, you can see, going back the last couple months, expectations were higher. Obviously, they dropped dramatically after that liquidation of it in October. It was October 10th. And they've been sliding ever since, but you would expect that. As there are fewer days in the year, that gives us less and less time to move up fairly dramatically. Also, if analysts like Raoul Paul and Julian Biddle and TechDev and Tom Lee are correct, then it doesn't, just because you don't see an all-time high, again for XRP by the end of this year, it doesn't mean there won't be one this market cycle. All of those analysts I just cited, which have great track records and have, careers in finance, a few of them for decades at this point, they firmly believe that this cycle is not over. And if they are indeed correct, if their thesis is correct, which I've talked about extensively recently, and I actually have more to say on that in my very next video, but I'm going to section that one off. I just got to tell you, if they're right, we're still going to have that proper alt season. XRP still going to melt faces. But, you know, if you ask me, if I had to bet, will XRP hit a new all-time high this year? Doubtful, because at this point, if you look at when it's likely for global M2 to trend up even more quickly, and for all the reasons I've talked about in other videos, which again I don't want to get to in this video because I don't want to get bogged down. It's not the purpose of this video. For tons of reasons I've been talking about, the timing would make more sense if it were a bit later in the year. And I don't pretend to know exactly when that would be, but just broadly speaking, you could be halfway through 2026. Could be a little bit later, somewhere thereabout. Look, I will be shocked if we don't see like just a ridiculous face melting rally for XRP before the cycle's over. I would be shocked for that. But if you're asking specifically, very short timeline this year, I'm skeptical of that. Now, it could happen though. I'm not going to rule anything out. It's crypto, folks. Like, stuff can happen faster, but I'm not necessarily counting on that this year. So the people that are saying there's a 3% chance of XRP hitting a new all-time high, yeah, or well, that's not even what it's saying. It's saying there's 3% are saying there is a chance it's going to hit a new all-time high. So for everybody that doesn't think it's going to happen, I'm in your camp of skepticism at a minimum. Though I'm not going to predict anything outright. Like I admit I don't know what's going to happen with XRP price. I'm just saying it's not crazy. It's also not that big of some negative signal. So since there was an article about it, I just thought I'd throw in my 2 cents on the matter here. Here's a post from Tropic. This account is run by the co-founders of on-chain analytics firm Glassnode as well as Swissblock. And here they wrote the following. And this is just from this morning. The Russell 2000 breakout just happened. Historically, every major Russell breakout has been followed by a Bitcoin run into its cycle high with alts going vertical. Not because IWM predicts Bitcoin. Just pause here. IWM is the ticker symbol for an ETF that tracks the Russell 2000, so it's effectively the same thing for purposes of analysis anyway. And so he says, because it screams risk on liquidity. That's why. That's why he's saying this matters. It screams risk on liquidity. Small caps ripping equals investors moving back into risk assets across the board. This is the second round. Okay, I found this particularly interesting because in recent days, over the last, say, I don't know, two to 3 days, or no, it's Sunday. Maybe it's been more like 3 or 4 days. Whatever it's been, I've come across before this guy, before Tropic, at least 3 additional analysts that have characterized the Russell 2000 as breaking out. And so I looked at that, and mind you, I'm not a chart guy myself. So I looked at that, I'm like, it doesn't look like a breakout. And it's like, yeah, bottom November 20th, it looks like it's up a lot from them. It went from like 2,300 over 2,500. Okay, cool. If there's a technical reason they want to characterize it as a breakout, okay, that's fine. They can call it whatever they want to call it. Either way, I found it fascinating that they're all characterizing it as that. And also, that's important to us as XRP holders because of what he said here. Look, when there's a greater risk on appetite, he is correct. The data proves this. When there's a greater risk on appetite, money flows in to riskier assets like small caps here, Russell 2000, as well as the crypto asset class on the whole, but especially altcoins. So the idea of there being a serious alt rally before the cycle ends, yes, that is plainly still on the table, unquestionably. Here we had a post from chart analyst Mustache. 2026 will be the year of altcoins. And this is the others BTC chart. So it's showing altcoins priced against Bitcoin. And you can see it's been trending down for several years here, which is what he writes. And he's correct. He says, this falling wedge has been forming for 4.5 years now. A breakout will affect the entire altcoin market. Okay, I'll say about this what I said about XRP throughout 2024. Markets find bottoms. Well, while the haters out there were saying XRP is going to fall to zero because it hadn't broken out yet, before the election last year, I said, well, that's a stupid idea you have in your stupid little brain. That's what I said because I got unnecessarily aggressive. And but it's true. What I'm saying is true. And so I just said markets find bottoms. Unless this was an asset that had freshly broken fundamentals, which no longer made sense, which was not the case for XRP, obviously. And think about it, and it also just gotten regulatory clarity. It made no sense to think it would keep trending to the downside. So for people like me who are paying attention, I'm in the know, I'm aware of what's happening within the XRP ecosystem. I just knew that was a dumbass take, and it truly was. XRP is going to zero because of reasons. It's basically the analysis here. Here's how deep it is. It's not deep at all. It's very shallow. Price of XRP going down, therefore will continue going down eventually to zero. That's it. It's done this for this amount of time, therefore will never stop. Those are bad analysts, or they're just so heavily biased they want that to be true, so their bias bleeds out into their analysis. That happens too. But no, market found a bottom, XRP rocketed. That's what happened. You just wait till XRP finally hits a new all-time high against Bitcoin, because that's what'll bring you ultimately into double-digit price territory for XRP. If that's what's going to happen this market cycle, which many analysts believe is the case, I'll not be surprised if that's what unfolds. I'll not be surprised to see that. But yeah, markets find bottoms here. I don't know for sure if others have hit a bottom yet, or if it's got a little more to go. Whatever the answer ends up being, it'll be. And that's what I said about XRP throughout 2024 also. I don't know where the bottom's going to be. I didn't know for XRP either, but markets do find bottoms. This thing will rocket higher. That's happened every single cycle. It's not done, period. Here's a post from Crypto Wizard. Double breakout. We've seen this before. Ethereum against Bitcoin has broken above the key EMA. The last 2 times this led to a rally. What's even more interesting is the lower high trendline breakout too. Extra fuel. Okay, well, I hope this is the moment in time. He seems to be thinking there's at least a possibility, but if that is the case, you know that when Ethereum goes, that's going to be something, historically at least, that sparks the rest of the market, including XRP. So we'll keep watching for it, but whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next quarter, whatever it's going to be, I'll tell you this, I'm going to have exposure to the crypto markets because I firmly believe it's going to come. I just never know when the thing's going to happen, whatever the thing is that's being discussed, but it's going to happen. These markets are trending up and to the right. And so that's why I put heavy money into those coins that first of all, show utility, and second of all, the market believes in. So that's why I keep gravitating towards large cap coins, some mid caps, and almost, I don't take the small caps here. Like any small caps that I hold, and it's not saying there's a ton, they're small positions. Like the heavy amount of dollars that I invested in the crypto, it's into the smarter stuff. Like obviously XRP, got Bitcoin, Ethereum, Chainlink. Just go down the list. It's stuff I've been holding since 2017. And it keeps trending up and to the right on the chart. Like that's the obvious smart way to approach crypto, is have broad exposure and then just wait however long it takes. Which is, for most people, years and years and years and years and years, unless you have small expectations in terms of return, or you position yourself coincidentally right before the market starts ripping to the upside. Here's a headline from CoinDesk. XRP sentiment hits extreme fear as TD sequential flashes early reversal signal. Okay, there's 2 analysts I highlighted over the last couple days that made that exact point, and I just found it interesting that CoinDesk is acknowledging that, especially after spending the last decade fudding XRP for irrational reasons, because they suffer from the affliction known as XRP derangement syndrome. Even they're like, I guess XRP ain't looking too shabby here. But anyway, since it's the same, the literal same metric that a couple analysts have highlighted, which I shared on my channel, I was like, I'll mention that. I'm not going to waste time, reading through the article with you. Better things to do in this latest Moon Lambo hot jam, such as share this perspective with you from on-chain analytics firm Santiment. I've always been a fan of Santiment, although I do have one little thing I'm going to nitpick on in their analysis here, which is rare for me, but I'm going to do it. But the rest of this, I think, broadly makes sense. And they wrote here, XRP has continued to struggle to keep up, now shedding 32% of its market cap in the past 2 months alone. However, large investors and funds have continued adding XRP, which suggests that long-term interest has not disappeared. So I will pause here to note that is 100% true. That's not just opinion-oriented. There is very clear data to support that, which I have broken down in great detail in other Moon Lambo hot jams all up in this bitch. And it obviously, XRP ETFs, several ETFs have launched. That is the institutional money for so many reasons I've articulated in those videos, so I don't want to rehash them here. But yes, that is true. The smart money's positioning now, and you can also see evidence, though, of the typical lemming retail speculators panicking and selling because they have emotions that make them not feel good. You can see that also. So anyway, then they write, even with slower price action, that type of support can help keep the asset from dropping too sharply. Okay, so far so good. This is exactly the type of thing that I've noticed and been discussing on my channel. But then they wrote this. If XRP sees more clarity in regulation and market conditions, it could find a stronger footing again. Okay, call me nitpicky if you want to. But I have a feeling most of you are probably going to agree with me on this one. What do you mean more clarity in terms of regulation for XRP? It is the only large cap coin that has legal clarity. So what else is there to regulate? Because when you talk about regulation, you're talking about what's coming from Congress. And yeah, we need something, I guess the Clarity Act would help, right? But you need something blanket from Congress that protects the entire asset class, and including the rest of the large caps, like, for instance, Bitcoin and Ethereum. They don't have regulatory clarity. And I understand the odds of them getting attacked by the government are effectively zero at this point. Got it. And that's how it should be. I'm just pointing out they don't have protection from Congress. There are still questions about technically what parts of the government should regulate what. There haven't been lawsuits that have provided Bitcoin or Ethereum, go down the list, to provide any of the other large caps clarity. XRP is the only large cap coin that has regulatory clarity. So that's why, knowing that and then following that case in depth, I read literally every single piece of material that was filed in that case from the SEC and Ripple, which was just painstaking because I am not a legal guy, and just like even wrapping my brain around that stuff was very difficult, not being a lawyer myself. But I read through all of that, and I got help from other people in the community to understand it. I am well aware that XRP has regulatory clarity. So to see this, I'm like, what are you talking about? But the rest of it, okay. And then to say, for now, the community seems patient, watching for signs of better momentum and wider financial use. It did just see the crowd swing extremely bearish on the asset, but it's come back to middle ground for now. Yeah, so in swinging bearish, that's fine. That's just a sentiment. That doesn't mean there is something wrong with XRP. Typically what that means when you see heavily bearish sentiment, like that's actually a precursor for a momentum shift, if anything. Markets find bottoms, the emotions stop being as negative as they are eventually when price moves up, because it's always going to be the case. In particular, when it comes to retail investors, emotions absolutely are tied to whatever the price action happens to be. So if you see negative sentiment, even if you haven't looked at the chart, like, oh, the price is down, you can just know that is indeed the case. But again, markets find bottoms, and when it gets that severe, extremely bearish, extremely fearful, yeah, you do see a bit of a flip. And so now it's a little bit more neutral. Yeah, that's it. Welcome to humans, okay? That's just how it is. Here's a post from Crypto Insight UK. XRP holders, if you know, you know. And he shared this little snippet from his newsletter. And it reads as follows. XRP, still one of the strongest charts in crypto. As you guys know, I'm around 90 to 95% XRP, and I know a lot of people out there are really panicking about XRP right now because of what could happen in the future, but I'm here to say that structurally, XRP's chart is probably one of, if not the best, in crypto. After holding 7-year resistance as support for a year, I don't think this is bearish in the slightest. Even during the capitulation, on October the 10th, we wicked into previous demand and were immediately bought back up into the range we have been holding aggressively. That is a very good sign. This isn't to say that this range will continue to hold forever, but as of right now, the range looks fantastic, and so does the XRP chart. It genuinely looks like it is accumulating or reaccumulating for another leg up, and there isn't really much to argue against that. Spot on. And this is what I keep seeing from analysts that have been following XRP for years and years and years. Almost everyone would agree with that. Almost all of them. And there are a few exceptions, which I've highlighted. I'm not afraid to share the negative perspectives on this channel. I think it's healthy to have a diverse viewpoints on the channel when it comes to crypto expectations. But it's just interesting to me that most analysts have flipped bearish, but out of the analysts that I follow, only 3 have. And I follow dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of them. It's just fascinating. It's just, you really got to be careful who you follow here. There's a lesson in that. Here's a post from chart analyst E. Greg Crypto, XRP USD on the screen here. And he said, XRP, the macro trade. The chart suggests a simple reality. The worst case scenario appears to be a return toward $1, while the upside potential remains significantly larger, and there is no limit. Is it worth risking a long-term position for a possible short-term dip and then missing the larger macro move? Personally, I am not touching my XRP holdings. I am prepared to add if opportunity comes, because this is a macro-sized trade, not a small short-term speculation. Yeah, spot on. That's exactly how I look at this. This is how I treat all my coins, though. I buy, and then if I'm enticed to sell one day, great. And if the coins never go high enough where I'm enticed to sell, then maybe some of them even go to zero. Okay, too bad, so sad. I guess I lose my investment. That is what would happen. But I just want the exposure because you can't know for sure which are going to rocket to ridiculous heights. So my perspective since 2017 is, since I don't know that, I'm just going to hold. And even if there's like ridiculous drawdowns in the short term, I just hold through them. And if I really believe in them, then I just accumulate. For instance, I bought XRP for the first time in November of 2017. Rode it from about, when I first bought it, it was 20-21 cents, somewhere around there. Rode it up to its all-time high, $3.35. And then I held XRP as it crashed over 90%. And then I spent the next few years buying more XRP, dollar cost averaging, literally for years. My last purchase, I think it was September or October of 2020. It was one of those months, I believe. And then I was like, okay, I have a buying problem if I don't stop. And I finally stopped buying XRP a little over half a decade ago. And then I was like, I really need to have round out the portfolio a little bit more. And even today, so XRP is like half of my crypto portfolio, even though I haven't bought it in over half a decade. But all that to say, the drawdown didn't scare me. I just viewed it as an opportunity. And so I've just held through everything. But that's the right way to approach this. If you think XRP might go lower and then you sell and hoping to buy lower, well, okay, maybe you'll luck out there. But if that's a type of behavior you're sometimes willing to engage in, you're going to get burnt eventually. Eventually, you're going to sell, wanting to buy lower, and then it's going to rocket, and you're going to be left with nothing or reduced holdings. And so for me, I'm not going to play that game. That's why I'm super strict with myself. I buy stuff, and then I hold, however long it takes. I've held so many different coins since 2017, literally, and just not cashed out to USD yet. And they're worth a fortune compared to what I paid. But I haven't cashed out to USD yet. I'm just going to keep holding and holding until I'm sufficiently enticed, and then I'm going to sell. Hopefully, if it's the right environment, I'd love to sell my entire crypto bag if I'm sufficiently enticed, or at least hopefully most of it. But anyway, all that to say, that general mindset makes sense to me. And then he says, the monthly structure continues to respect the macro channel that has guided XRP's trajectory since the beginning, what I call the line 1. And once again, price is consolidating within a classic bull flag formation. Breakout, retest, continuation. Bull flag target, approximately 20. Top of the line 1, around $35. Top of the line 2, near $200. Okay, gotta pause here. Now, I gotta say this. If anyone thinks that XRP is hitting $200 this market cycle, yacht your damn mind, son, you're in Looney Tunes land. Now, Greg Crypto, as far as I'm aware, does not believe that. Anytime I've seen him talk about this, when he's throwing out these huge numbers, like, $100 plus, for example, he's talking about not this cycle, but way into the future. Way into now that is fine. Like, because even I'm definitely more on the conservative end within the XRP community in terms of expectations. I'm not the most conservative. There are definitely people that are more conservative than me, but I lean that way. And even I will acknowledge, yeah, absolutely. If XRP continues to be well adopted, if there's no time qualifier on expectations, well, yeah, I don't think it's crazy to think XRP gets to $50, $100, even getting up to what he's talking about. I mean, it's not inconceivable that XRP could reach a couple $100. There's not a snowball's chance in hell it's happening, this market cycle. But if there's no time qualifier, if you're just saying at some unknown point in the future, yeah, if XRP keeps getting adopted and keeps going that direction, it'd be weird if it didn't have a wacky high price compared to where it is now. So that's not great. So it just depends on what you're talking about. If you're saying this cycle, get the hell out of here. If you're talking about at some unknown point in the future, hypothetically, yeah, I don't think that's crazy. I'm in that camp. I think that's absolutely plausible. 100%. There's way more than enough money on the planet for that to happen. To get the price bid up to 100, 200, whatever it would be, yeah, way more than enough money on the planet to make that happen. Even not talking about inflation, just where we are now, the value of $1 today, yes. And that's what matters to me. You guys know what you think, but I'm just going to continue remaining an XRP bull because that's what makes freaking sense. And it's the same approach that I've had since I jumped into crypto. I buy and I hold. That's it. It's an unsophisticated, unsexy investment when it comes to way to invest when it comes to, well, any investment really, certainly including crypto, but it's worked in the stock market for over 100 years. It's worked in crypto for over 16 years. It just works. It really does. Broad exposure, hold for a long time, and then keep hanging out so that you can moderate your emotions as the volatility continues. Because it is extreme. The volatility is extreme in crypto, and when it comes to investing, we are our own worst enemies. And if you get wiped out in crypto, like, sorry to say, like, it's probably your own fault, unless there's, you know, a scam or something like that, or, you know, hole in the code of a coin that you're holding. Okay, things can happen. But if you're doing the right thing, which is, you know, just broad exposure, and then you just hold and you gravitate towards large caps, it's really going to be hard to lose investing in the crypto asset class. You just have the exposure. And if you take the approach that many take when it comes to investing in the stock market, which is to say, like, for instance, you buy an ETF, and then you don't research the companies that are included in the ETF, you just have the exposure. Like, if you're buying an ETF that tracks the S&P 500, are you researching 500 companies? No, you are not. The point is to have the exposure, which is why even without an ETF mechanism, you can make your own little index effectively. So if you're gravitating towards even just like the top 10 coins, and you stay towards that range where it's, you know, effectively, quote unquote, safer in a very risky asset class. Yeah, if you do that and you hold for a long time, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to have some winners. Some stuff will probably still be losers. But on the whole, it works. Because the ones that win, they're so astronomical that it far outweighs anything you might have bought that goes to zero. Like, that's my thought on it anyway. So you guys do whatever you think. I don't know what's best for you. I'm not telling you to buy or sell anything. But for me, this strategy clearly works. It's such a pragmatic approach to investing. It's been used in traditional finance forever. I'm just applying it to crypto. And I wish that more people would preach that message because it just makes sense. You shouldn't be a maximalist of anything. Like, I'm not a maxi for XRP, even though I'm biased and it's my favorite coin. Just hold. There's so much freaking opportunity here. There's serious risk, but there's so much opportunity. For me, the opportunity far outweighs any risk. I'm just saying. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say, all right? That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.